This is Super Yacht News in association with Go Earth Boating, navigating boat buyers to better deals. Hi all, welcome back to the channel. So we've got a story here about a yacht being boarded in the Bahamas. 21st of October this happened. The yacht, named Motor Yacht Odin, a 38 meter yacht built in the US flagged vessel, was boarded by authorities in the Bahamas and Bimini Island in the Bahamas, and they found what they described as a cache of weapons and a big amount of undisclosed money. We're going to get into the details of it. So the timeline of this yacht's movements: the yacht left Fort Lauderdale the 13th of October. Like I said, it's a US flagged vessel. It's flagged. Its home port is Sag Harbor in New York. The vessel was in Fort Lauderdale on the 13th of October, headed to Miami, then proceeded to make a number of short trips back and forth from Miami. Each time, one was to Key Biscayne, each time returning back to port in Miami. And then on the 21st of October, the vessel sailed to the Bahamas. Now, it's a short trip over there, and they arrived at 1320 UTC, which is 8:20 local time on the same day, the 21st of October. Now, the yacht was boarded approximately 11:30 local time. The police officers from Alice Town Police Station and the Bahamas Customs Department searched the boat, docked at a port in Bimini Island. Authorities say they were acting on intelligence. Now, we're going to come back to that in a minute, but that generally means that somebody told them that there was weapons on board, right? So the police say they found 3 high-powered weapons, 11 firearms, a substantial amount of ammunition, and a considerable amount of undeclared cash, which were all confiscated. Now, high-powered weapons suggests rifles, doesn't it? High-powered. 11 firearms, so pistols maybe, I don't know. And a substantial amount of ammunition. Now, there was an Eyewitness News Bahamas broadcast, which I will show you some of here.
Meantime, 10 foreign nationals in police custody tonight after a major weapons and cash seizure on the island of Bimini. According to police, officers acting on intelligence carried out a joint operation around 11:30 yesterday morning, conducting a search of a vessel docked at a local port. During that search, authorities reportedly uncovered a significant cache of contraband.
And they also posted on Facebook, and it said that the authorities say the weapons and cash have been confiscated. The investigation continues. Now, the suspects, it says everybody was arrested on board the vessel. 8 Americans, 1 South African, and 1 Guyanese, aged between 21 and 62. They're all taken into custody. Now, that vessel can carry 9 guests, and it has a crew of 6. So the crew of 6 were probably on board, right? 6 crew were also amongst those arrested. Now, what the US Embassy says, that undeclared cash refers to money that's not been reported to the proper authorities. The US Embassy in the Bahamas warns that any traveller entering or exiting the US with more than $10,000 or equivalent foreign currency must report it. The embassy says failure to declare the cash carried in or out of the Bahamas may lead to seizure of the cash, and the traveller may be subject to criminal prosecution. Now, the embassy also said that the Bahamian customs authorities strictly enforce regulations for the temporary importation and exportation of firearms, noting officials have imposed stiff penalties on US citizens who enter the Bahamas with firearms or ammunition. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of the laws in the Bahamas when it comes to firearms. I'm not going to get into that here. One of the things that we've always said, and we've made a number of videos over the years about firearms, carrying firearms on yachts, why they don't do it generally. I think this subject prompts more comments than any other subject that we do on this channel. Now, I understand that in the US, there's a very specific group of people who are very pro guns. I'm not going to get into the details of that, whether it's right or wrong, whether people should have them or not. I'm not interested in that. But what we've always tried to point out in the past videos and in this video is, when you travel out of the US, you have to abide the laws of the country that you're going to. Even when you're traveling within the US, even if you're in Texas, say that, I think, let's just say Texas, because I know that's a lot of people have weapons in Texas. If you're in Texas on a yacht and you sail to Los Angeles, the laws in that different state may be different with regards to what you can carry in. So even within the US, there are different laws that you have to abide by moving from place to place. So if you go from the US to the Bahamas, then you have to abide by the rules and regulations in the Bahamas. Now, like I said, we get more comments about this than any other subject. People will say, well, if I had a yacht, I would have weapons on board regardless of whether it's allowed or not. And I've always said in the comments and in videos that if you carry weapons into another country that are undeclared, you'll get arrested. Everyone on board will get arrested. And that's exactly what's happened here, it would seem. Undeclared weapons have been found on a vessel and everybody's been arrested. Now, the captain of that vessel is responsible for that vessel. So he, even if he says, well, they're not my weapons, they belong to the owner, he's still responsible for that vessel. So it's quite possible that some of the crew may be released because, you know, the guy, the deckhand, 21-year-old deckhand, he doesn't know anything about what's being carried on board by the people who are on board, the guests who are on board, right? But the captain, I think he's in a lot of trouble. And also the people who are on board who are guests, if they were indeed, those weapons belong to them, then they're all in trouble, right? Like I said, you might be in Miami and maybe it's perfectly legal to have those weapons in your possession on board that vessel there. And it could be even that the yacht normally, the yacht changed hands in July. So this is, whoever owns this vessel now is quite new to ownership of this vessel. But it may be that they keep them on board all the time and they just forgot about them. And they had them in a cupboard, you know, because they go shooting, clay shooting, do whatever they do with those weapons when they're in the US, which is perfectly legal, right? And it may be that they said, let's go to the Bahamas, and they just completely forgot. And they travel down the Bahamas, and then boom, they get caught with these weapons on board. And to the Bahamas authorities, they're illegally importing weapons, right? So it could be as simple as that. It could, you know, it could be that they, like I said, they carry these weapons deliberately, hidden, concealed. And what I always said in previous videos is that if you cannot carry things like that on a yacht and people not know about it. Now, going back to what they said, based on acting on intelligence, which means basically somebody told them that those weapons were on board, and so they knew where to look, right? So they went on board, they searched the vessel, and they found them. And this is what I've always said before, that you can't get away with it because the crew always know what's on board, right? Now, when it comes down to the crew, who are most likely innocent in this, they're just crewing the yacht. But if those weapons are a regular occurrence on board, it's most likely that they knew about them, right? It could be that it was a charter yacht and the guests who came on board were just chartering the vessel for a week for a trip to the Bahamas, and they brought weapons with them in bags, and the crew had no knowledge what they had on board. That's another possibility. Obviously, they'll find out more as they. I'm sure they've been interviewing all of the people who've been arrested to find out exactly what happened. But this is, like I said, this is another example of why you cannot travel with undeclared weapons on board a yacht, right? Now, like I said, we get more comments on this than anything when we do this kind of subject, and there'll be lots of those comments again. Another thing to clear up, it's a US flagged yacht. There's no law. I know what people are going to say. I'm preempting what people are going to say in the comments, that just because you're flagged in the US, your yacht, it does not mean it's like a US embassy where all of the yacht is part of the US. It's not how it works. When you're on a vessel in international waters, you can carry those weapons because your flag state allows it. When you go into another nation's territory, you are bound by the laws of that nation, even when you're on a US flagged vessel or whatever flag you have on that vessel. So there'll be lots of comments, but this is not I'm not trying to say you shouldn't have weapons. I'm not talking about that subject whatsoever. I'm just basically saying that this is why you can't travel with hidden weapons on board, because somebody always knows. And you know, like, it could be speculation now that this a crew member who got fired knows about this hidden locker, and then he just phoned up the authorities and said, you know, or it could be that the people who were traveling on board have enemies and they knew about the weapons. You know, it could be any number of things. That was speculation, but I'm just showing you how this can happen when you carry those weapons on board. Now, I know people always go on about pirates. I worked at sea for 25 years, and I've been through areas where there are pirates, and I've never seen any pirates. That's not to say that they don't exist. But when we did go through those areas, like in the Persian Gulf and in the Red Sea and all of those places, we had the appropriate security on board to deal with that such a threat if it did occur. So there is, the international laws regarding the use and carry of firearms on board around the world are different in every country pretty much, and that's why most yachts don't bother with them, because it's just too much hassle. And one of the things that you have to do when you go into a country is we have to do something called clearance. So when that vessel arrived in the Bahamas, they've pre-planned that trip and they've told the authorities that they're coming in, and then they have to clear. So they'll have to send information on a yacht this small. It would be the captain most likely, or the chief officer will send all the information. Everybody who's on board, nationalities, photocopies of their passports or whatever. They'll send all that ashore. They'll be cleared. Now, nobody can go ashore on that vessel until that vessel's cleared. They might not even be allowed to dock until they get an okay to dock. Then they dock. Still, nobody's allowed to go ashore. Either the authorities will come on board, the customs and immigration will come on board. It's more often, in my experience, in the Caribbean, it's more often that they come on board than not. In other countries, very often they don't come on board, and the purser on a bigger yacht, when you have a purser or somebody from the yacht, will take a bag of passports and go down to the customs office and show all the passports, and they'll come back and say, okay, we've cleared, we can go ashore. But that happens every time you go into a different country. And, so you have to declare if there's anything on board, anything like even in some countries, they want to know about all the electronics, who's got a phone, who's got computers, laptops, whatever you might have, you have to declare it on a sheet and you have to give it in. So, and because they're trying to make sure you don't try to illegally import things, like phones, and trying to sell them to people or import it illegally into the country. So there's very strict controls on this. One of the things that I did in a previous video is I was talking about heavily armed Americans. If you type into a search engine heavily armed American, you're most likely going to find videos and photos of a chap called Mel Bernstein. I think he lives in Texas, and he's also known as the Dragon Man. And apparently he's been nicknamed the most heavily armed American. And I was just looking for a picture of a person with lots of guns, and I found this guy. And I looked him up today, and I found some videos of all his weapons. Now, if he was to fly to the UK, he will probably know, because he sells guns, right? He'll probably know that he can't take those weapons with him, right? Now, if he was to sail to the UK on his yacht, he will also know the same rules apply. You're not allowed to travel with those weapons into the UK. So, I'm not against or pro guns in this video. It's got nothing to do with that. I'm just pointing out that the laws in different countries are different wherever you go. And, you can't go assuming that because it's legal in a country of origin that it's legal where you're going. So that's all I wanted to say. Like I said, we'll bring you more on this when we have it. Like I said, all the crew were arrested. I don't know whether they're still being held, but I would imagine they'll most likely, the lower ranked crew will probably get released eventually, because they probably had nothing to do with it. But the captain, who is responsible for the vessel, I think he's probably in a lot of trouble. And all of the other people who are on board, hopefully they'll come to some sort of agreement. But yeah, and all that stuff's been confiscated. So all those weapons, they'll never see them again, most likely. So yeah, so just take this as a warning if you're planning on doing any of that traveling. I think most people are perfectly aware of these rules, but just wanted to point them out. All right, guys, I'll leave it there.
She speaks too loud and laughs too hard and she drinks too much.
I just wanted to let you know our video about a yacht that's 100 years old. It was launched in 1931. It's live on the channel. Went live yesterday. We did a premiere. It's a passion project of mine. I've been spent a long time editing. We have as a team, and it went live last night. I kind of expected it. That's why I called it a passion project. I kind of expected it to be low viewed, because I don't know why, but for whatever reason, whenever we do a tour, they don't get a lot of views. But this is nothing unlike any tour you've ever seen. If you love history, if you love old ships, then please check it out. I'll put a link on the screen. I'll put a link in the description. You can go to the home YouTube page, and you'll find it there as well. It's a really good video, so I'd love it if you could watch it and let me know what you think about it in the comments. All right, guys, be sure to check us out on patreon.com/GSysman as well, and YouTube members. We did a video about this weapons thing already, which is live on both of those platforms. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.